Hi. Good afternoon, everyone.
Is your microphone on?
Am I on?
Move the foam out. Is the red light on?
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call our June 6th Town Council meeting to order. Could I have a pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. A roll call, please.
Mayor Varela?
Here.
Mr. Moffitt?
Here.
Mr. Bell?
Here.
Mr. Berner?
Here.
Heidi Felder?
Here.
Ms. Tillerson?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Just an initial comment in our quest to try to become more efficient and timely on our town meetings. We made two changes. One, we started at 1. That has worked. 2, we thought we would limit the citizen comments to 30 minutes, which is part of our ordinance. I don't think that's a good idea to start that today. So hopefully you've had a chance to sign up or not, and you're certainly welcome to comment. We'll here listen to everybody.
Do we need a motion for that, or we don't know? Perfect.
Okay. We have 3 sets of minutes under tab 1, our May 2nd meeting. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Any discussion, comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Second was a special town call meeting of May 15th. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
Second.
Any discussion or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
And third was our public hearing of May 22nd. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Any discussion, comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mayor, may I just so that the community knows, and just as a reminder, today we're going to have a presentation from Dr. Cawley. He will be here at 1:30. So wherever we're at in the agenda, if you don't mind to stop to let him present, because he has to leave by 2:30.
Very
or,
good, very good.
Or
Thank
2
you.
o'clock, I'm sorry.
Did everybody heard that? So we're, just to clarify, we're expecting him at 1:30, but he has to leave by 2:30.
By 2, I'm sorry.
By 2, okay. Okay, I'll start off. A comment. Over the weekend, initiated by our agenda that we sent out Friday, we, all of us at the council, we received many notes, comments, letters. And that's wonderful. You know, it's always good to hear so many. They dealt with an issue that is on the agenda. It deals with the Upper Beachwalker Drive project. Just to clarify, there is no vote to be taken relative to approval of that project. No vote to be taken relative to the approval of that project. We will discuss that project later on in an hour or so, but there will be no vote. The point I'm bringing up, if you wish to talk about that earlier on the agenda, you may, it's clearly your prerogative, but you may wish to wait until we have it on the agenda, or we get to it on the agenda, and may wish to hold your comments at the later time. That's your choice. It's a beautiful afternoon. You may not wish to spend it with us, but it's your choice. So you don't feel as though you have to say something sooner. You can certainly say something later if you so wish. There will not be a vote relative to the approval of that project. Okie dokie. Council members. Michael?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to reemphasize what the mayor just said. We will discuss the Upper Beachwalker parcel topic this afternoon as it creates a starting point for the regular, normal process in this community of community involvement and debate, proper review by the Planning Commission, if necessary, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and then whatever follows, okay? It was never intended to become a done deal that we have done in the background, although I have to say we told you, the community, early on, I think starting in March, that we are talking about this. I think we have now reached a status that will enable us to decide if it's worth moving forward, trying to convince the partners in changing their concept for these parcels or not. That's what this agenda item later today is about. So just want to clarify this and also hope that we don't waste too much time in the following citizens' comment section on this topic, because it's actually not really existing. I have a couple of updates that I wanted to share, like the last times. We have implemented some first activities at the first gate to mitigate traffic backups in the morning. So some of our staff and some of the Beach Patrol code enforcement team are now trying to guide traffic in the morning. At least from my own personal observation, it seems to work pretty well. The backup lines have become much shorter. We'll probably always have a few cars backed up, but I think it really has helped us to mitigate the situation at the traffic. We have made some first improvements to the safety of the leisure trail crossing at the first gate, crossing over Beachwalker Drive by redoing some of the signage on the road. We also have put up signs there, preliminary signs. They will, of course, be all ARB approved at some point. But I think this will help, and together with Russ, we have really worked on some details that are now in discussions with Kika and the ARB. This being said, Russ and I also believe that there are some other intersections between the leisure trail and main roads like Governors, like Kiowa Island Parkway, Ocean Course Drive, etc., where we need better signage and safety measures to avoid that pedestrians or bikers are getting in conflict with vehicles. So we are working on that. We also have started at the Beachwalker Park to mitigate traffic on the weekends to make sure that there's no parking violations. So our court enforcement team has been instructed by Stephanie also to pay special attention to that part of the island. I'm happy also to report that our Kiowa Goes Green initiative has started. We now had our first meeting with all the stakeholders, so from Kika to the resort to the Kiowa Island Club, the sanctuary, the conservancy, and Riverstone. We now have a very detailed plan. 10 projects are currently under that umbrella, and the teams that are working on these 10 projects will start their work next week. I would expect that some of these projects will be implemented relatively soon, over the next couple of months. Some will probably take longer in becoming fully implemented. We're also currently working on a federal grant application to get financial support for our EVs charging stations before the first gate, and we'll probably submit that by the end of this week. I am very thankful to Roger Warren and his team to finally take down the ugly fence along the old inn property. I have to say it doesn't look so great behind that fence, but it's so much better than it was before, so I think we are all thankful for that one. Street sweeping along Kiowa Island Parkway and Beachwalker Drive will start soon. We have worked on several policies and guidelines that will be shared with the community very soon. And we had a little change in the responsibility for two work groups. Actually, John Moffat and I swapped the responsibilities for the work groups related to the ARB and the ordinance review, just so that you know. Last, or almost last topic, I feel personally I have to apologize to the community that I changed my vote on the SATEX funding for the USGA Amateur Golf Tournament at the Kiowa Island Club. I was under the impression that this money would really be used in the last 3 to 4 weeks prior to the event to inform the public that this tournament takes place and that people can actually come to the island and enjoy this tournament. None of this has been done. So in the aftermath, I clearly believe that I made a mistake with that vote and wanted to apologize. I also want to share that I have heard so many times over the last month since the campaign started that community members would really like us to work better together with other stakeholders. And we have reached out to the KICA board several times, even for something as innocent as a cocktail hour, an idea that myself and one of my also new colleagues on the KICA board had, and nothing has flourished out of that. We're working on it. At some point, hopefully, we will get back to a normal relationship, but at the moment, probably not possible. Last but not least, we have our next community drop-in meeting on Wednesday. So we moved it from Friday to Wednesday, please note. The next one is on June 14th, which is next week Friday. We also changed the time based on, I'm sorry? Next week, Wednesday. Did I say so? Okay. We also changed the time to the afternoon based on a lot of requests that we received. So this meeting is from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And we also changed the location to the Sand Castle upstairs. Okay. So next Wednesday, June 14th, 2 to 4 o'clock at the Sand Castle. Russ Byrne and I will be super happy to see a lot of you at this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Many, many, many good projects underway. John?
I have a much shorter list. On the issue of the review of the ordinances, I'm going to be gone the month of June, so we're going to actually get that cranked up the 1st of July when I get back. We've got a plan in place. I'll be sending a note out to the committee members this week to prepare them for that, but expect a lot of work to be done in the month of July, and we'll keep you updated as meetings occur. The second thing is, and this is just something for people to file away and maybe make it part of the record, is that I was on the beach about a week ago with my family, and Michael Sosnowski, who most of you guys know is involved with the beach patrol, was there with his family for a nice day at the beach. But Michael still had his radio on his belt because he's never really ever off duty. And there was a young man, probably about an 8-year-old boy, that stepped on a stingray, and the barb got in his foot. And his parents said, oh, the pain will go away. And it didn't. It gets worse and worse and worse as the way the toxin works. And so Michael called the beach patrol. He saw it happen. He called the beach patrol. They were at the young man's spot on the beach within about 2 minutes. And they had his foot soaking in hot water, which is about the only way you can eliminate this toxin. So as it turned out, other than having his foot in a hot water bucket for about 30 minutes, there was no harm done. I guess my caution is that Michael was telling me that last year they had about 100 of these injuries on the beach during the summer. It's a very common thing in the shallows of the water. So my caution would be that if you are with a group where that occurs, number one, call the beach patrol. They'll be there very quickly, and they have the provisions to accommodate the injury. But secondly, don't assume it's going to go away. It's going to get worse. It's just a caution. And the third, if you can avoid it, don't step on a stingray. But anyway, I thought you should know Michael Sosnowski is never really off duty, just so you know. I wish he was here today. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, John. Russ?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to reemphasize what the mayor and Councilman Michael indicated with respect to the Upper Beach Walker parcel, in that we are not approving any plan today. And I'm bringing that up because I received a lot of emails and I had a lot of people call me. We're just not approving a plan today. That's never been the intent. And IKEA had a whole bunch of misinformation out there. So I just wanted to reemphasize, we're not circumventing the planning board. We're not circumventing the BZA. And most importantly, we're not circumventing the community. You will see on slide number 13 of the presentation later on today that we specifically have in that PowerPoint, we're engaging the community. So there was a lot of information out in IKEA that we were circumventing them, and that's not the case. And I wanted to also to let you all guys know, there's already a preliminary plat, not the site plan or anything, but it's a preliminary plat that's already been approved.
What we're doing is restarting and trying to improve on what we already have. That's what we're doing. Moving on from that, I also wanted to add on to what Michael said. Michael and I are very interested in safety and silence. Very, I should say concerned, but alerted to the dangers of crossing Seawall on Island Park. Michael and I already have some ideas about what we're going to do to improve pedestrians from crossing over Seawall Island Park. And a discussion of the preliminary basis of the ARB. Hoping we will be able to let you know what happens next month. We have some. I think it's going to be a great resolution to help people crossing over Seawall Island Park. Similarly, we're moving down the road for the emergency call boxes. We have more cost information. I think we're going to wind up putting one right here in Park, which makes sense, particularly where teenagers and others congregate in ice and anything will be on emergency basis. They'll be able to contact us. I know all these have still, we understand that. But still, we're looking at it sort of emergency call box. And I also want to follow up on Mr. Moffitt's comment about beach patrol. These guys are awesome. They're absolutely awesome. What happened with me, Memorial Day itself, we had a beach party, with 15, 20 people. And one of our party participants had a glass bottle of beer in the beach. I didn't see it, but the beach patrol did. And the thing that really impressed me about the beach patrol, how courteous, how professional they were. They went up to, an older gentleman in a very professional manner. And of course, we were apologetic that it happened, but I sent out a email to these guys are top quality. They were quite so I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Brad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few updates. We'll start with the meeting of the Arts Council, and I'm the Arts Council liaison that took place last week. The Arts Council program for 2023 has come to an end. It turned out to be a very extraordinary one, and they also reported out that they've nearly finalized the 23-24 season, and it looks to be a very exciting one. The signal issue that the Arts Council continues to confront in trying to put together arts programming for the community is venue. Both the appropriateness of the venue and trying to schedule that, work with the different performing artists. Apropos of that, work on the Performing Arts Center feasibility study continues apace. There's actually a workshop this week on Thursday with potential users of a performing arts center. So anybody who's currently participates in performing arts programs but might be a user of a performing arts center is sitting down with the management consultant to develop a potential site building plan as well as a management plan. So stay tuned on that, but the feasibility study continues. Second, I'm on the board of the Charleston Visitors Bureau Explore Charleston, and a number of interesting developments in that regard. One, the mayor and I were extraordinarily fortunate to have been invited to meet with Dr. Sylvia Matthews, the director of the museum, and along with some other local officials, get a preview of the museum before it officially opens. It's truly an extraordinary place. It's an extraordinary experience, and I want to encourage everyone to attend that facility when it opens at the end of this month. I've also had a brief conversation with, and we'll see if we can get this scheduled, given that she is extraordinarily busy, about doing a podcast with Dr. Matthews to talk about her background and the history of the museum and what the vision is. One other interesting aspect of discussions with Explore Charleston is with regard to their upcoming promotional activities vis-a-vis Kiowa Island. As many of you may know, we are obligated to send some of our state tax funds back into tourism promotion, and you actually have to have it to send it to a tourism promotion organization. That organization is Explore Charleston. It's about $800,000 a year. Some of that comes back our way in promoting Kiowa Island. The messaging that they are interested in pursuing this coming year is a little bit different than it has been in the past. They suggested that we might want to focus on something, or they would want to focus on something more related to the environment, sustainability, and resiliency. And as the conversations evolved in the early stage, and I had a meeting with Erin, I don't know if she's back here this morning, and Stephanie and I chatted about it, is that the promotional campaign may end up entailing something like print and video that would be focused on things like bobcats, Jim Jordan and Erin, on dolphin strand feeding, on sea turtle nesting, on the Shorebird Festival and the red knot migration. It could even touch upon the Go Green, Kiowa Goes Green initiative and the marsh management plan, but a very different type of presenting a picture of what Kiowa Island is all about that a lot of people might not be familiar with, and attract a different type of kind of eco-tourist to our community beyond what the tourist that we've had previously. So stay tuned on that, but that has a lot of potential excitement to it. The third is that and this somewhat relates to one of the presentations that will come up a little bit later today. Later this month, I will be doing a podcast with Herbert Ames, who is the managing director for Eden's, the owner of Freshfields Village. And I expect that will provide an opportunity to talk a little bit about Eden's vision, background, and vision. They're organizationally, institutionally, they're all about kind of building community. I've got to know the CEO of Eden's, and actually Eden's started in Columbia, South Carolina many years ago, although it has a national footprint now. And the CEO actually has strong local and regional ties with properties in southern Sullivan's Island and Daniel Island. But what I think we will hear from Herbert Ames is a little bit about kind of what their plan is, what their vision is for Freshfields Village, as well as the integration into Andel West, which is also a topic for later discussion this afternoon. Michael alluded to the ARB work group. We've been meeting periodically with the objective of pulling together a lot of information to share with the community. And there actually is quite a bit of information to share. It's both with regard to kind of the legal framework for architectural review on Kiowa Island, as well as we've discovered, patterns and practices that tend to go kind of beyond the legal framework and better understanding that and communicating that to the community. I would note that in addition to Michael being on the work group, Kevin Donlin and I think David DiStefano is here as well, are both KICA members on the work group, and if anybody else wants to chime in. But our expectation is that we're in the process of putting together a PowerPoint presentation that will outline kind of the findings, initial information that the task force, the work group, has gathered. We anticipate releasing that to the public within the next week or two. Kevin and I will actually do a podcast that will be a little bit of a teaser. That's scheduled to be produced, I think, on the 14th and come out a couple of days thereafter to kind of tee up some of these issues. And then in the next week or so thereafter, I'm not sure we finally pinned down the date, we have an expectation of having a community meeting to present the findings and start to get community input. So that work continues as well. There are a handful of development-related issues that are kind of facing us. I was going to briefly touch upon, and 10 or 11 of them actually, but I see that Dr. Cawley is here. So, Mayor, if I perhaps can come back to those, and one of those that's obviously of great interest to the community is getting an update on MUSC. So perhaps we can invite Mr. Cawley up, Dr. Cawley.
Absolutely, Brett. Thank you. Thank you. Boy, this is like running like a clock. Just like a good surgeon. You're up. You're up, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thanks for having me back. And I said I'd come back as often as you want to give an update. And I know there's a lot of interest in the community, and we've been slow to get information out, mainly because we've just been, as I told you last time, we've been working on a new site. So last time I was here, I gave you a little bit of insight into this new site we're looking at, which is at the Seafields site now. So where we are today, this would be across the street. This would be in Kiowa, town of Kiowa property, on the Seafields site. So there was a piece of land there that they were not using. It's owned by Kiowa Partners. And it's turned out to be a good site for us. We've gone through the due diligence. We haven't run into any issues of any significance. And we are working through the purchase agreement right now with Kiowa Partners. We would hope to wrap that up, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And we have updated the cost. Now, that was a little bit of a shocker. The costs have escalated significantly, so we're re-looking at the building and how we're designing it. We're trying to value engineer it a little bit in order to bring the cost down. But we're committed to that site now. We don't anticipate any problems. We will have to come back and talk to you at the right time about a couple of things. That's not exactly, I think, zoned for an emergency department. I don't think the medical office building side is an issue, but the emergency medicine side would be. We'll have to come back and talk to you about that. And I think there's some other minor details that we'll talk to you about at the right time. But we don't anticipate any issue. We're moving forward. We're actually going to start to communicate this as soon as we get the purchase agreement done. We're going to start to communicate this very heavily. So I would imagine within the month, when that's resolved, we'll start the communication plan on it. So we would anticipate that once, probably 2 years from this summer, we could have that up and running and be done. But I just want to reiterate, we are committed to this. The price did go up. We'll deal with it, but we are going to build this. Is the bottom line.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Building configuration itself, much different?
The building configuration will be different. So on that previous piece of land, it was a long, narrow piece of land, and the building was going to be long and narrow. This building is going to be squarish. I won't say exactly a square, but rectangular to squarish. But everything that's we had originally planned for, which was broadly in 2 areas. One was an emergency department, a full freestanding emergency department. None of that changes, all right? Helipad, et cetera. Nothing changes there. And then the other side is what we call a medical office building. So this is a building in which we have space to see physicians, space to take classes, telehealth, therapy, radiology, lab, et cetera. So in some ways, this land is maybe a little better. It's the configuration of the building, maybe a more standard medical building. We're also taking some space. We had already planned to take some space in Seafields anyway. So this will be not far from Seafield. So in some ways, it may be better.
The Seafield site, but it's still the partners that own it, so there's independence between Seafields and this site, so.
Yes, and I'm broadly calling it the Seafield site. It's not technically Seafields, but it's that,
I
it's
understand.
that land, just to orient everybody. Just to help everybody a little bit more, when the main entrance there, that's going to be Seafields, you would just simply go straight ahead. You come in that entrance, you take a left to go off to Seafields, but you go straight down. You run into the lake. If you kept driving, we'll be right before the lake.
And they don't need to approve that. This is a,
Correct.
it's wonderful, Pat, it's wonderful. Folks at Seabrook know this yet?
Yes, I mean, it's getting out, but we haven't done a big communication yet, simply because, I hate to do that until we have the purchase agreement absolutely done. But there's really nothing, we don't see any issue with that.
Any comments or questions from?
Just a quick question, Dr. Cawley. So it was my understanding that the prior site was a donation by the partners, right? That's still the case?
That is still the case.
Okay, so there's no change in that, because
No.
you were talking about purchase agreement, et cetera, so it's
Well,
more a donation agreement then.
Yeah, it's still, at the end of the day, there's still an agreement, purchase-like agreement.
Okay.
But it would be donated, yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other questions of Dr. Colley? Thank you so much for coming out.
Once again, I'm happy to come as free, because I know there's a lot of interest.
Yes, there
I
is.
see the emails, I see the blogs. Happy to keep you updated on this.
You are very welcomed to Kiowa. Well, anything we can do, Stephanie can do, John Taylor can do, please, you will. Let us know. Let us know.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Thank you for
All right,
coming
Thanks
out.
for coming.
Thank you. Brad?
So to pick up, there are on island and off island. I'm trying to add them up here. At least in addition to MUSC, 9 or 10 other near-term or somewhat longer-term development projects that are likely to be of strong interest to the community. Some of those are on island, and some are off island. The ones on island, obviously Beachwalker, Upper Beachwalker, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later this afternoon. Night Heron Park, there is a public hearing for proposed rezoning scheduled for next month. That's actually a downzoning change from commercial to parks and recreation. I believe that's and Roger, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of a precursor to some of the conceptual plans that have been presented to add an amenities facility to Night Heron Park. And then also, with regard to the area where the fence has been removed, Roger, yesterday at the KICA board meeting, indicated that there are plans to develop that. I think you said 12 to 18 months. A question was posed, well, what's going in there? And he says, stay tuned. But what he did say, what it's not going to be is a hotel. So it will be something else. And Roger said we all need to stay tuned for that. Off island, obviously Andel West, and that's on the agenda for a little bit later today. Some other things that have captured attention, one was, and by the way, a lot of the off-island stuff is on the agenda for the Johns Island Task Force meeting tomorrow. These issues are discussed pretty extensively in the Johns Island Task Force meetings. And who is typically there is the Charleston County Planning Director, to provide some insight from the standpoint of staff. Russ and I are both the liaison to, or members of the Johns Island Task Force. We're not going to be able to be there tomorrow, but I expect we will be able to get an update. But a lot of attention has been paid to this potential medical village just up the road from Rosebank. It was first kind of floated conceptually before Charleston County almost 2 years ago in the fall of 21. It's come back as a slightly evolved concept. I had an opportunity to meet with the owners. I know the mayor and Councilmember Heidingsfelder have as well. I believe it's scheduled to go before the Charleston County Planning Commission, tentatively going to be on the agenda for August, so nothing imminent with regard to that. I haven't had a chance to kind of compare the current iteration of what the owners are thinking about versus what had been presented back in November of 2021, but I think it has been scaled down somewhat, some additional buffering. I know there were some concerns expressed in the Johns Island Task Force meetings previously about septic, and I don't know how those issues have been dealt with, but stay tuned on that. More imminent is Orange Hill, which is the Partners Development off-island. It's now scheduled for a July 10th Charleston County Planning Commission workshop, and there's a pending DHEC application with regard to a 2,000-foot deep well. I was just stunned about how much water is necessary to, but Roger would know more about this than I, to irrigate golf courses. 275 million gallons of water per year is what is, and it was anticipated and is in the DHEC application. So, you know, that's in the, that process is starting. The Bohicket expansion, now I believe it's tentatively on the Seabrook Planning Commission agenda in July for potential annexation into Seabrook. Seafields, there may be a building permit pulled fairly soon with regard to that one. The only other thing to note is there's a lot of activity. What about our roads? Well, the main road segment C corridor project, unfortunately, the county staff has been working to reduce the number of alternatives to be considered. They're trying to move between two now, alternative 1 and what's known as Alt 6, which is the Rational Roads proposal, some combination of that. It would involve widening lanes between Edenvale Road and all the way on the other side of Maine up to Brownswood, maybe doubling the size of the lanes, but nothing south of that, and then making a number of other small changes. Unfortunately, that process has been further delayed until August or September. And right now, we're still looking at probably 5 years before that project fully gets built out. So that's kind of it on some of the development-related activities. Just the final matter, Mayor, that I would note is at the council meeting last month, there was a presentation by the town attorney. I was intending to pose some questions regarding that presentation at that time. My fellow council members asked me to put that all in writing, which I've now done, and so that can now be submitted for the public record, and I don't intend to substantively discuss that here at this time. There will be another opportunity for that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Brad. Many, many, many exciting projects. Two things to add to Brad's report, great report. If you get a chance, that African American Museum is striking. It is just spectacular. It truly will be a destination. People will come to Charleston just to go visit there. So it's well worth waiting in line to get your ticket. 1, 2, Brad mentioned the medical village. Michael and I have talked with the owners, not because of the medical village, but because of the schoolhouse. They own all of it. They own the property in the schoolhouse. So we got into a discussion regarding renovation, restoration of the schoolhouse, and those discussions will continue. But what we did ask him, you may have asked them the same thing, Brad, if they would come here I think there's 3 owners, if I'm not mistaken, three fellows. If they would come here to give an update on all of that, this property going that way. And we'll wait till we hear from.
And at least one of the owners is actually a Kiowa, owns property on Kiowa.
Yep. Okay. Okay, great stuff. Steph?
Yes, Mayor, I only have just a few things. Just one update on Kessel Court. It's, for the most part, completed. There's just some remaining things that we're trying to work with Carolina Waste. Michael, who's in our Public Works Assistant Manager, he is trying to finalize those things, as well as getting up some additional signage, because what we're seeing is that while we have signage up there and how to operate it, it's not being operated properly, and therefore it causes the machine not to just function properly. So we're working on getting some additional signage there, and also looking at trying to put some maybe different compactors there that may work easier. The second thing, as Councilmember Belt mentioned, Seafields, just to let everyone know, from the town's perspective, the town has completed all the review of the building drawings. The only thing that's waiting for is just some zoning that Seafields is aware that they need to get some additional information to John. But my understanding is that they finally have reached a threshold to be able to start trying to get financing. So from our standpoint, there's nothing else that we're really holding up except for just zoning, but that's just, I'm guessing, maybe just a letter. But from the building standpoint, we have reviewed everything. So there's nothing from the building that they're waiting on. John could not be here today, but he wanted me to just give a few updates or reminders. Charleston County 5-year comp plan review, they're having their public workshop tomorrow, June 7th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Berkeley Electric Co-op. And it's right here on Johns Island. If you cannot make the meeting, they have a website up that we put in last Friday's e-blast, and I'll make sure that we include again this Friday, where the public can comment if they so choose. As Mayor Belt mentioned, in regards to Night Heron Park, we have already the public hearing scheduled for that, which is going to be Tuesday, July 11th. Some of you may have seen the cables going across the road. We're doing our Kiowa Island Park traffic counts. The traffic counters have been installed, and we have active for 2 weeks counting. And so we have 2 weeks right now of counting information, and we do that annually. He also just wanted, and I think that's it. Any questions for me, for staff?
The coordination of 2 medical-related facilities, Seafield and MUSC, is going to be, it's going to be interesting to say the least. It's going to be really busy. Citizen comments, we won't need to follow the list. Please let me know. Raise your hands if you would like to make a comment. So we're open. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Please.
You have to go up. Can you walk up there, Linda? Yeah. I thought so.
My name is Linda Leffler. I live at 60 Sunlight Bed in Inlet Cove. I cannot stay till the end to make comments, so I don't think my comments would change either way. Obviously, living in Inlet Cove or Riverview, we have a vested interest in what happens over by the Upper Beachwalker development. I'm happy to hear that there are ongoing discussions. Obviously, we understand that this property is going to be developed, but we would certainly like to have some input into it. Speaking for the owners of Inlet Cove, we have 2 main concerns. One is height, and I think that's something that everyone should consider. Coming on the island, is that what you want to see, 3 to 4 story buildings as you enter Kiowa? Also, this does not fit into the neighborhoods. We are all 1-story, single-family homes. So the height is a concern for us. And the other one, of course, would be density. As you've already stated, you have someone in the morning directing traffic to get in and out of Kiowa. There's no room to expand Beach Walker Drive. So if you have whatever it is, 78, 90 dwellings in that area, it's going to make a major impact on getting in and out of Beach Walker Drive. So I think these are two considerations that need to be addressed. I'm happy that there are going to be ongoing discussions, but please keep these things in consideration with approvals as they go forward.
Thank you very much.
John Grierson, 109 Bobcat Lane. First, appreciate all you guys do. There's a ton of things on your plate. You hear from me every couple of weeks on these issues, and it's really specifically addressing the discussion coming up later today, because generally when a discussion ends, there's action taken, so I'd like to put my comments in first. This comes from, I retired for 2 national home builders, are the largest 4. The last one, I ran a third of the company and built 4,000 homes a year across 6 states, all different municipalities and all that. I was the developer. You have a very astute and well-oiled machine in State Street Partners. They know what they're doing, obviously. That was us. It's an economical decision for them, and then if it fits in with whatever we want, wonderful. As you guys, and I'll just cut really to the chase because I think everything she just said is true. We have all the same concerns, and I think everybody on the island does. This is a business, and they're a great business. It's a business decision for them. But as Michael wrote back to the community, he wants the starting point to be, let's get past the by right plan and move on. And what I would ask all of you to think about is, what is the by right plan? What actually can be built? You have numbers of 93 and 83. Has there been a full platted plan that an engineer has looked at to show that the roads work, that the lot coverage works, that all the things that go with that, with no variances given, because I could see just on the drawings, there's lines over setbacks and all these things that go on. And everything starts with that, because that's the economic basis for what the partners are interested in. And I'll throw it at you because I think, you know, Michael's starting point is 66. And I will say right now, there's a win-win here for everybody. There is a reduced plan. You want that to be one parcel. But it's a negotiation, as you guys have said. But there could be a plan with 44 units on it that is economically more viable than what they can build truly by right. Not what the numbers say, but what they can truly build. And that's what you need to look at. Not just pick an arbitrary number that's a couple units less than what they had and say it's going to look prettier. It really goes back to find a plan that is more economically viable for them, that suits the community, and you'll have a win-win in there. And I think before you throw out that we don't need to look at it by right and get onto some arbitrary thing and then go through the list of all the things that you're asking the Planning Commission to agree to with setbacks. That seems like you've jumped forward and actually negotiated what the Planning Commission is supposed to engage everybody in the process. So it's highly unusual that you jump that whole process. But I'd ask you to look at that, and if you've had an engineer look at it, I've never seen one. I'd love to see it. This is what I did for a living, and then I'd love to sit down and understand the economical impact for that, and then how the new community of what they can have will benefit them as well as us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
Todd Bonet, 3532 Shipwatch. Actually, John covered one of the 2 topics. The other thing I would ask is if the town council either today or in a follow-up could outline what the steps are going to be to move forward on Upper Beach Walker. Obviously we know that it's Planning Commission, it's BZA. Is there an amendment to the development agreement, for example? So if you could outline steps and timetable, that would be helpful. And I think it would help to channel the community discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
Jerry McGee, 17 Inlet Cove. 2 things. One, I want to make sure that the planned medical facility that MUSC is going to, obviously it sounds like committed to, doesn't interfere with the other medical facility, and that there isn't anything there that would give MUSC pause. So I'm sure you gentlemen and ladies will make sure that that happens, because we wouldn't like to lose MUSC. The second thing is, Michael made a mention about working together with the town. I'm the chairman of KICA, and I want to let everybody know that we will do everything we can to work with you, work with the resort, and our objective is to be collegial. We have a lot of issues facing us. We will not be able to do them all alone. We're going to have to cooperate, and I want to pledge that KICA will certainly be looking for opportunities to cooperate with you, to work with Roger and the resort, as the many challenges that we're going to face over the next few years confront us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Yes, ma'am.
Gay Stathis, 288 Marsh Cove Road. This might be totally crazy, but I said it in an email to the council members, perhaps. Is there any possibility that the Upper Beachwalker parcels could be bought and put into conservancy easement? Is there a way to negotiate with the partners to find out what they perceive their cost basis to be in that property and what profit they think they would make, given that it would be developed at some point into some number of residential units? To me, it's outside the box, but not outside the realm of possibilities. And it would be nice for all of us if we didn't have more traffic coming in to Beachwalker Drive. It would be nice to have some amenities, if possible, on that parcel other than just more residential units. Also, it just seems to me that Beachwalker Drive is going to become a nightmare if it isn't already. Once the Cape is completed, if you were to add these residential units, the Dunlin Hotel's website is advertising for their prospective hotel guests that there will be beach excursions for their guests to come over to Kiowa. Right now, the lease for Beachwalker Park says no drop-offs, and only the amount of people allowed are the amount of people that can park in the designated parking spaces. But that's being circumvented. It's not really being, I guess, audited or actually overseen by anybody. So it really concerns me. I know myself from having been at Jazz Night over at Andel Inn, which is a really lovely place and a fun place to go on a Thursday night. The big screen TV behind the jazz band is using the Kiowa Island trademark logo to promote guests and anybody there like myself who's not staying at the hotel to come go to the beach with us. And they have a shuttle service dropping people off at Beachwalker Park, which again, I believe the lease says no drop-offs. So I just want to call that to everybody's attention. If there's some miracle that could happen and we could buy, not we, but a group of stakeholders could buy the Beachwalker parcels and put them into conservancy, that would be for me the win. That would really only for me be the win. Otherwise, I'm going to be, I don't know, swallowing a horse pill.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments? Okay. Old business. Under tab 4, an ordinance to amend the Town of Kiowa Island Municipal Code, Article 15, fireworks and explosives. Stuff for you. This is the second and final reading.
Yes, I think Mr. Harris is going to speak on that. And
Great.
one of the things he'll speak on is in regards to the 9:30 time for July 4th.
You're up. Hi, Craig.
Good afternoon. Philippe took the responses back to our committee board, and we made the changes from 10 o'clock to 9:30 due to the fact that there's two shooting on separate occasions during that day. Other than that, and we made the wording so a lot more simpler.
Yeah, but Greg, help me to understand. I mean, we're talking about July 4th,
Yes.
right? Sunset is about 9 o'clock. It's dark after 9:30. So that current timing would basically prevent any of the fireworks displays on July 4th. They usually do it at 9:30 or later.
Right, and
So-
usually around about 10 o'clock is when we try to disperse and get, people away from the area and kind of make traffic back to normal during that time. So give our security and all the entities involved to clear the festival areas.
What time does the resort do their
Yeah.
July 4th fireworks show?
I don't have the schedule what time it starts, but it usually starts, I know they have the parade and stuff, like six in the afternoon.
Right.
Yeah.
Park first,
Right.
and it's dark, so somewhere around 9.
9.
Then we do it following at the sanctuary, and it's usually, within 15 to 20 minutes after the one finishes in the park. So probably around 10 o'clock before it really gets over with. So between 9 and 10 for both of them.
It reaches 9:30.
So I think the recommendations, can we just go ahead and make change from 9:30 to 10 o'clock?
That's fine.
Or 10:30. I mean, because I think in the first reading, it was 1 o'clock, and that was the
That was
complaint,
for-
or the suggestion that I believe came from Brad, that for the 4th of July, we don't need to have that late hour.
I believe
So
the 1 o'clock
I'm
was
not sure
for
that 9:30
January.
is the right time here.
So is 10:30 okay?
Yeah, that's
Up to
fine.
you all.
Roger?
He's looking at you guys.
10:30?
That's different.
UC's a different.
That's
Yeah,
1
see,
o'clock.
you
What I
have
was
it.
saying was,
Trying to get a job.
Oh, yeah, January 1st is by 12:30 a.m., which should be okay. But 10:30 on July 4th?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. And no, exactly.
Right.
No weddings.
Oh, okay, so with that, we need a motion to approve the,
No, it hasn't been on the floor yet, no.
could I have a motion to approve
Yeah.
the language on that last, or the second from the last sentence? The hours of lawful use will be extended until 10:30,
So moved?
4th of July. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion. And.
Is that, okay,
All right, now we need to move to make an amendment. I move to amend the time to 10:30 from 9:30.
Agreed. So moved, yes.
I did.
Second.
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 For the 4th, yeah, for the 4th of July. Yes, correct, sorry.
And I would propose an amendment that the last sentence under C
Yeah, I went ahead and did, that's just a,
becomes, okay,
Yeah,
so we
that's
don't need
just
that.
your clerical,
Good.
yeah.
Just for clarity.
that's just clerical. Yeah.
Okay?
We're only
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to have one amendment. It's just a clerical.
Okay,
And I'm
thank you.
making that change.
So we got an amendment, and it's been seconded. Any discussion?
any discussion? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So now do we have to say, now we have to vote on the amended, as amended?
amended.
Okay.
So moved.
So move second.
It's already, we're just voting on it, right?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Can we get this printed up on a little card?
Yeah, on my
Well,
sleeve.
there's Robert's. rules.
And now this is a second reading for ordinance 2023-07, guide and direct its receipt and expenditures of revenues during fiscal year 2023-24. There's no red. So anything on this? Could I have a motion to approve the second reading of this ordinance?
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
I have one discussion point. I just want to highlight one topic.
Yes, sir.
We discussed that before, but for the records, I'm concerned about the legal expenses that we have occurred already for this running year, and I fear this might be the same in the 23-24 timeframe. So I want to caution us and the community to be very mindful when legal matters are brought forward. At the moment, after 11 months of the current budget year, we are 50% above budget for our legal expenses. And that is substantial. It's an amount of, if I remember correctly, above almost $50,000 in overdraft to our legal budget. So I hope that we can be a little bit more mindful in the new budget year as it relates to these legal expenses. Thank you.
Other than that discussion, we've had a motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. John, on this request for surveys is not recommended, but at this point, it's been
Tabled it.
tabled. Okay. All right, we have two new business items. A period of time ago, I'm not sure exactly when, a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, Chris Carrata from Riverstone came and asked for Chris Carrata is a senior account rep for Riverstone, representing the Goodwin family on the Andel West project. That's with the county. They're going through their approval process with the county. And Chris came to us and was looking for our support. And what he did was give basically a verbal report. He told us about the changes. He told us about the work that had been done with the folks at Cacique, other entities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was very favorably received, and we said, sounds good, everything looks very promising. What we have now are, these two things. We now have a narrative, a 3-page narrative about the Andel West community update, and we have a graphic. So now we have what it would look like. Chris contacted us, talked with Stephanie, and would now like our report, or now like our support based upon what he has provided us. So you all have had that, and I'll just kind of open it up for comments. If any of you have anything to add or share or reflect on what has been given to us by Chris. Any comments from council?
The
Go ahead, Michael.
The only comment I would make, and I have no questions about the concept, I've been briefed on it, I've been involved in it. I think this is a great concept, and I believe that there has been a lot of support already from the community. I would just really like to see Riverstone come to the community, present the plan themselves, and give the community further opportunity to provide input and commentary. I think that was an agreement we had with Riverstone. I haven't seen that really being the case yet, no matter if this is going to be going as a development through the Charleston County processes or otherwise. But I think that Riverstone still would be advised to have that community meeting with these new plans.
Steph, do you know? Has he mentioned that? Is he planning on doing any? I don't know. We can ask.
He's working right now with the county. I'm not sure if he has a date yet set, and I'm sure once he gets out of that schedule, he will reach out to us and try to coordinate a time here.
My understanding, it wasn't last chatting, it wasn't until kind of maybe August.
That's
so
correct.
it's still
The county. Yeah.
Right.
the county
That's correct.
going before the planning
Yeah.
commission. They've replatted, and so they've kind of got to start the process again.
Correct. And yes, I'm sure once he gets all of that, his date set up, he will reach out to us and come here as well.
Okay.
I was just trying to say, I would appreciate if he comes here before it goes into the August meeting. I think that's what I think he promised to us. He certainly promised it to me, so I think that's still something we need to see happening before August.
We will do that. We will make it a point. and ask him.
This was kind of framed on the agenda as a discussion, possible vote of support on the Andel West project. I don't think we're intending to take a vote on this.
Well, that's a good question. You know, we've really not had a vote of support because we're really not approving the project. I think we're just reacting to his request to.
I would be very comfortable publicly conveying my support for, and other council members can do so or not. I'm not sure we need to take any official action. And I do fully support this as how it's evolved. It's been, I think, a remarkable testament to, the community and the developer working together to achieve a really good compromise outcome. What I might suggest is at kind of an appropriate time when this is really before the Planning Commission for formal consideration, that we consider sending a letter from the council at that time.
So I agree with Brad on this. If you think about the timing and the sequence of events here, this is a whole different deal than the Upper Beach Walker because this is to the county. So it seemed to me that once he gets it scheduled for the county and potentially comes here to present kind of what they're going to show the county, that would be the appropriate time for us as a community to voice our support. And the way to do that, I think, Brad, you're right, is a letter to the County Planning Commission that we are in support of this that's about to be presented to them. That would seem to make the most sense to me.
If I could add, it might also be helpful.
Wait, no, you can't, actually.
Good point, John. Good point, Brad. Any other comments?
No, sir.
Well, Brad indicated his support. Russ, would you
Oh,
feel?
absolutely. The concept's great.
Yeah.
John, you would feel the same?
Yes.
Michael, you would feel the
Yes,
same?
very much so.
I certainly feel the same. So Stephanie, we can have that documented and memorialized in the minutes and share with Chris. And certainly with those caveats, we want him to come back, the timing of coming back, the timing of the letter, et cetera. All right. Upper Beach Walker. All of you have the slide deck, and I am not going to bore you by going through slide by slide, but I will ask you to go to page 7 and start the discussion on page 7. My intent here is to make some comments. I would certainly like to have Michael make some comments, and I would certainly like to have the opportunity for each of the councilmen to be able to make their comments, and then we'll see where it goes from there, okay? On page 7, we put this in there as a touchstone, rightfully or wrongfully, and it can be debated whether or not 97 dwelling units can be built on that site. Be that as it may, the maximum allowable development entitlements on these 5 properties is 97. The aggregate we can wrestle with the aggregate, debate it, which will just be a rhetorical debate. But what's really important is you look on parcel 8, parcel 9, parcel 10, parcel 11, parcel 12. The 10, 4, 60, and 23 become important, okay? So keep in mind that's the maximum allowed development entitlements. It's on the books. This is the one that's important. Page 8. And if I confuse the community with the language, I am sorely sorry. So if people spend sleepless nights worrying about this and getting up and sending notes, I apologize. However, in my defense, I thought we made it clear. On October 5th of last fall, the Planning Commission approved a preliminary subdivision plat for this possible layout. This was approved. This isn't conjecture. This isn't up for grabs. This was approved by the Planning Commission last October. Option 1, option 2, you can all read the parameters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It did not require town council approval. Does not require town council approval. Does not require community involvement. This is approved. The next steps from a preliminary subdivision plat development is site plan review which is done by John Taylor, and final plat review, which is done by town council.
No.
I'm sorry, the planning commission. I'm not on the, planning commission. It does not require town council approval. This plan, this project, this site plan, okay? That's what's on the books right now. Fast forward. We asked for a meeting. Michael and I asked for a meeting with the developers. We asked for a meeting with the developers right after the holidays. We have told everybody all along we were going to the developers to see if we could have that plan improved. Have that plan improved. And we have had, I don't know, 5 months worth of meetings with the developers to make that, to try to see what they would, how they could respond to that. They've been very constructive. They've been very positive. They've been very cooperative, and outlined on pages 9, 10, 11, and 12 are 8 concept design, just concept features that we felt could represent a baseline for a new planned development district. A new planned development district in lieu of what you saw on page 8. So, we don't have to go through the 8 bullets. You can read them, you understand what they are. Which gets us to page 13. Of all of the emails that I received, and no one asked the question, does the developer have to respond and proceed with the application for a planned development district? No, they do not. If the council overwhelmingly supports the 4 bullets on page 13, does the developer have to respond to our request for support and encouragement? No, they do not. They have already received preliminary approval in October. They are proceeding in every way towards site plan approval and final plat approval. They have not slowed down their processing to get approval for that project. We are asking them to, not demanding them to. We are asking them to, we are encouraging to have meetings with the community and the neighborhoods and the HOAs and all those types of things. They do not have to. So when I read all of these memos that I'm receiving, I'm a little bit confused because everybody wanted us not to support this, not to encourage them to do this, which is fine. My first question was, the town council is being asked to support, encourage, and encourage. They may not make a motion. There may not be any discussion. It's done. They will proceed with the plan they have on page 8. I don't know. In my head, and we reviewed it, and we reviewed the language, we thought it was clear. Apparently it wasn't. So what I am asking this council to do is support the basic parameters discussed and outlined as a positive starting point for the community involvement process to begin. To support the basic parameters as discussed with the partners towards a planned development district solution. They have to apply for that. If they don't apply, it ain't going to happen. We have to encourage them to organize various community input sessions and educate. All we can do is encourage them. I can't demand it to them. They don't have to. And the last one, we asked them to proceed with the project for a plan development district with the town's planning commission. So I appreciated all the letters. I appreciated the notes saying, don't do this. And I will sit here and tell you, I don't know why. Because if we don't, they're going to proceed with site plan and final plan approval. Michael, any comment to add to that?
Yeah, just a few comments. So I think over the weekend, we've seen so many comments and so many references also made to Andel West, which I don't really understand how these two things really compare properly to each other. Here we have 5 parcels with entitlements that have been given to the owners a long, long time ago. Nobody in this room was probably even on this island when these entitlements were given. And the developer has the opportunity to build on this whatever they want, whatever they feel fit, their own financial statement. That's what it is, period. Andel West is different because everybody in the room is going to be a future customer of Andel West's properties, restaurants, supermarkets, etc. It's a different thing. We should not forget that. But just as a side note, I think what really matters is for us to understand how we can make productive impact on these parcels so that we don't drive by the first gate and be ashamed of ourselves to allow that to happen. That was our starting point. That's why the mayor and I called out on the partners, sat down with them, and had good, open discussions, debate. We threw around many different ideas, including, Gaia, the idea of, where's she back there, of buying the property, etc. And we came to a point where we feel now it's worth to start the regular process. That's what we want. Nothing else. But to have the chance to now officially go through the different steps of community involvement, planning commission scrutiny, maybe BZA, which is probably not necessary, but we will figure it out, and come to a planned development agreement with the property owners. Okay? Because the only thing that yet is missing, and missing to also what the mayor said, we had open and constructive and productive and responsible meetings, but with never a final agreement from the partners that they will drop page 8 and go to a new, better concept. We still don't have that. And to some degree, I think it's good that we don't have that because this should be part of the process that now follows. But as the mayor said, if we don't find support and agreement for this starting point, to bring the partners to the table, have them organize these various community meetings with the neighboring HOAs and with the overall community of this town. If we don't get to that agreement with the partners, then I think we all have lost. Because then it will be built as they like. So let's sit down, debate. If this is a starting point we agree upon and we see benefit, and I actually have received quite a few emails over this busy weekend that actually support a lot of these 8 parameters as being better than what we can see on page 8. Let's take them let's go to the partners and say, now is the time to start to get serious about this, bring in the community and bring in the process that we have to follow as a town. Thank you.
So I have a couple of comments.
Yes, sir.
Number one, talk is cheap. Everybody in this room would like, okay, you being the exception, you want to buy the property. So holding you aside for just a moment, I think even you would agree that what we really want is three things. We want more setback, less height, and less density. That's it. Everything else you can put into one of those three categories. And so nobody here is going to disagree with that being our desire. But again, talk is cheap. Until the partners decide that they're willing to come forward and make some adjustments to their process, and we can see that they really are doing that, and here's the similarity to Andel. Riverstone did that. They came back and said, okay, we hear you. Let's try this version. So I think at this, I've read all this stuff, and I'm thinking, well, if we keep talking, we're just talking to hear ourselves talk. The partners have the next step. They've got to be willing to come back and show us that they hear what we're saying, and they're willing to take some action on those three areas. And until they do, I don't know. I mean, it's like the mayor said, we can't force them to do any of that. And we've told them what we want. We've been very clear. Michael and the mayor have done a great job of trying to make them understand where we want improvement or change, let's say. We believe it's improvement. So to me, the ball is in the developer's court to actually show some change in their process. Schedule some meetings. Maybe draw some bubble diagrams of a new layout of the thing, or maybe document that no setback is going to be less than 100 feet, whatever they do. But I think it's up to the developer at this point to do that. I think we've done what we can do. I mean, that's the end of the thing. I think we've done what we can do. And we either need to be stuck with what they originally had, or we need to think that they're taking us at our word that we really do want to work with them to have something that's an improvement. That's kind of the way I see it.
Remember what I said in the very opening of the opening statement is the entire purpose of this is to improve what is already approved. And that's the key. Preliminary plat's approved. That is already accomplished. And what we are trying to do is get increased setbacks, lower heights, and none of us here, and I'm going to say this once again, none of us are approving any plan. There's no plan here that we're voting on to be approved. We're voting on going back and restarting the process.
We're not really voting on that.
Yeah, I hear you, but that's where we are. It's that simple. We're restarting the process, but remember, there's a fallback plan that's already approved.
Brad? Thank you. I first want to commend the mayor and Councilmember Heidingsfelder for their initiative in working with the partners to try to develop a potential solution to the Upper Beachwalker parcels that would be an improvement over what the partners can develop by right. And I would also note at the outset that the framework, and that's, I don't particularly like the term parameters, but the approach or framework that has been outlined, I think is demonstrably superior to what the partners had first presented a year and a half ago when they wanted to consolidate and upzone all 5 parcels. That's all to the good. And indeed, whether you call them parameters or potential negotiating points or a framework for discussion, what has been outlined, I think, is in fact, with one critical exception that I'm going to come back to, is a reasonable, very reasonable starting place for discussion about what may be possible on Upper Beachwalker. The one that I'm going to really take some exception with as a starting as a starting point parameter, or whatever you want to characterize it as, and it does relate to density, and that is starting with 76 units. And there's a very specific reason for that, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time walking through this, but it somewhat relates to what Mr. Grierson said. Let's just take the church parcel. By the way, the preliminary subdivision plat did not, in fact, give the developer the right to build 83 or 93 units. Full stop. It did not. What they can build consistent with applicable zoning regulations. With regard to the church parcel, just ignore the number 23, because not even close to 23 dwelling units can be built on the church parcel. And in fact, if you look at their own schematic as what they can do by right, they only get 11 units on that parcel. And that's even with some encroachment, and it's not clear that those roads and other things meet the required setbacks. So on their own schematic, we're talking about 11 for the church parcel. It's not even clear that technically they can build that many. Can they get 60 on the larger parcel 9? Perhaps. But if you look at their configuration, and again, this gets to the question of if we're kind of really negotiating around this, do we need an engineer to look at this? There are some setback encroachments that would require variances. They say in there's some variable road widths. It's not clear that those would comply with the town's zoning code. It's not clear that the cul-de-sac complies with the town zoning code. And if you just look at it visually, at all the coverage of the buildings and the roads, it looks like it potentially could exceed the 35% maximum lot coverage requirement. And that doesn't take into account stormwater management and other criteria. So all of the parameters, criteria, I fully embrace. I would add one as well, a potential rental cap that I think the community would be interested in. But with the exception of the starting point of 76, that is simply too high, because that would enable the partners to build at a greater density than they actually would be able to by right. And so with that exception, and that's kind of a legal and technical matter, I think this is a great framework for starting point with discussion. I would note that the partners, whether they come back to the table or not, I mean, you all have been talking to them, I have not. There are some clear economic benefits to having the parcels consolidated, whether they want to build it themselves or ultimately sell the property. There are reasonable trade-offs on both sides by switching from 4-story buildings on one of the parcels to 2 and 2.5 stories on the other remaining parcels to 3 across the parcels. They do want to add a potential Kiowa Island Club facility, which I certainly understand from their standpoint. That's not, I don't believe, a permitted use on these parcels now, so that would be a benefit for them. So right. Again, I think with the exception of the density parameter, I think this is a great place to start a discussion with the community with the goal of achieving something that is beneficial, economically beneficial for the partners and beneficial for the community as a whole. And I do think there's an opportunity for a win-win. So again, I want to commend the mayor and Councilmember Heidingsfelder for starting this process.
Okay, Brad, just one comment here from me. I disagree with your statement that there's no benefit for us to allow them to combine the parcels. The fact that
I didn't say that, Mike.
Can I finish that, please? Yes, you did. You just did. Is that only with combining the parcels, we have the ability for substantially larger setbacks from both the Beach Walker Drive from 25 feet to 75 feet. So 3 times larger setbacks, more foliage, more coverage, less ability for people driving by to see even the buildings. And the same on the southern border of the property from 30 feet, where the ponds are, 30 feet to 60 feet, which is a doubling. Without combining the parcels, those setbacks will not be possible. Just as an example of what the real benefit is for us as a community to allow them to combine the parcels. Okay?
Michael, just to be clear, I did not say there is potential benefit to the community combining parcels. What I said is, I did not say there was not benefit to the community. What I said was there was economic benefit to the developer, and I embraced all of the other parameters, including the setbacks and everything else you outlined. I think that's, like I said, it's a very, very constructive approach to begin the conversation. The only one that I have an issue with, and I think it would be a mistake to embrace, is the density parameter, which is, again, more than they can build by right.
Thank you all. Couple additional comments. Very subjective. Very honorable men. I think we're dealing with people that are extremely committed to trying to have this last project that they build on Kiowa to be one that for generations everybody will be proud of. My heart, I believe that very sincerely. Number two, timing is an issue. The development agreement terminates 6 months, 5 months and change, 6 months, 6 months. So for them to proceed with an application for a planned development district, now these are my words, but I think I've talked with them enough to know that's what they're saying. What they're saying is, you all are supportive enough with this framework, with these meetings with the neighborhood communities, et cetera, that we're going to be able to get something hammered out before the development agreement expires in December. So to be absolutely crude, they're not taking the foot off the gas of what they already have. So Stephanie says it so well. We're in the proverbial fork in the road here. The one approach is site plan approval and final plan approval. And Brad, your observations about what they already have, I leave that up to the very capable hands of the Planning Commission. They're going to have to iron all of those things out, whether there's conditions, standard changes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is, it isn't coming back to us for approval. It is going to the Planning Commission. The other fork is the fact of a willingness, and it gets back to those words, encourage, of their willingness to proceed down the path and apply to the Planning Commission for a planned development district. So they're literally going to have two projects going simultaneously. That's what they're going to have to do. If we choose to, if we encourage them to do that, and they in turn say, I think you guys are serious, you're going to work with us, we're going to work collaboratively, you got a lot of bright minds, I mean, all of those types of things. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. When we talked about trust, and people took offense that I used the word trust, we did go down the path, albeit a year ago or so, and we had a plan. It wasn't this well along in terms of the setbacks and whatever, and we didn't proceed with it. We did not proceed with it. They had spent time and money and energy and to do something, and quite frankly, that's why they turned and went the route that they did and take it to the Planning Commission in October. Okay, we've talked, we've heard. What's your pleasure? We don't want to take a motion. I'm asking to do that. We do, we don't. I leave it up to Michael, please.
Yes, I would like to bring a motion forward that says, I hope we can do it this way, so let me try. That the council encourages, requests, maybe even demands, I don't know what the right word is, I leave this to the native English speakers, that we encourage the developer to pursue a planned development district through the normal channels of the Planning Department, Planning Commission, and the BZA to achieve a decreased overall density, lower height, increase setbacks compared to current entitlements and prior concepts that have been shared with the council and the community. And second, pursue community input based on these parameters or framework or, right, you had a third word, whatever, to pursue community input in terms of HOAs, the whole community, et cetera, to discuss these parameters or framework and commit themselves to a better project than what the Planning Commission has seen. I know that's very lengthy, but I would like to motion that we really push, encourage, demand, require the developer to follow these parameters, to follow these framework here, and start the proper process of community involvement and planning process.
I would just call it a resolution to encourage.
I'm fine with that too, Joe. I'm okay
A
with that.
resolution implies one vote.
I'm happy. It's actually better than a motion. Thank you.
So do I comment now or?
Well, I guess, is that, it's just.
Resolution?
Is a resolution like the motion? To have
there
the
a second?
second? So is a second to Michael's resolution?
I'll second it, yeah. Do we vote on that?
So now I can comment?
Yes.
So, I appreciate what you're trying to do. But if you go back to this notion of trust, the council trusted you and the mayor to sit down with the developer and come up with things that we would like for them to consider. And you guys aren't speaking for yourselves, you're speaking for the council when you're trying to get them to review and consider other things. I'm very uncomfortable voting on something that directs the partners to do something, even if it's just to follow our notions of what we want to do. I think they need to take us at the face value that we're also a trustworthy group, and we think that this is as a council, this is what we believe that we would like for them to do. If they did nothing more than come back and say, you know what, you're right, we're going to schedule a bunch of community meetings. You know what, that's a great step. But I can't support your motion for the resolution. I just think it's inappropriate.
So what would you think is appropriate then?
I think it's appropriate to say, look, we've got these two guys that have talked to you to do these things. It's your turn. Tell us what of these things you're willing to do.
So you're saying the ball's in their court?
I think it is in
Let
their
them come
court.
back with a revised plan?
I think it's in their court to make some movement on these things that Michael and the mayor have talked to them about that are things that we think ought to be done. If they agree they're things that ought to be done, show us.
All right, so the partners now have the collective thoughts of what is on the PowerPoint slide, and then it's up to the partners to see or to prepare a new design.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say they need to do a new design. I'm saying if this truly is a discussion between two trustworthy groups of people, and we've said here's what we would like to have done. Now the partners need to say, okay, we hear you, and we believe that's probably going to be in the best interest of the community. So here's what we're going to do.
So there's nothing to vote on?
I don't think, I mean, it's nothing for me to vote on. There is something for me to vote on, but it would not be a yes vote.
Well, as I commented that they're honorable, I think in turn they feel we are. As we just got done talking about Andel, speaking for myself, we don't need a motion, we don't need a resolution. If you all are supportive of what you've heard, what we've talked about, and the comments relative to dwelling units have been expressed many times. If everybody's supportive for the encouragement of them to proceed with the planned development district and make that application to our planning commission, quite frankly, that's good enough for me. And I think that would be good. I think that would be good enough for them. I mean, whether it's a motion or just we encourage them to do it, you're right. I don't know what else. I'm not saying that the motion would be meaningless. There's nothing, we don't have any, there's no
teeth.
There's
We
no
can't
teeth.
force them to do anything.
So if everybody's supportive of encouraging them to do what we're asking them to do, It's good enough for me.
You know, we've done everything we can to get a document here that says, here's what we would like to have another go at. Now the partners need to come back and say, yeah, we're willing to entertain that, and here's what we're willing to do. And to me, if you've got two groups of trustworthy people, that ought to be enough. Because at the end of the day, John, they don't have to do any of this.
That's right.
And they can even come back and say, you know what? We appreciate your vote, and we hear you encouraging us. Thank you. Have a nice day.
They could do that as well. They could do nothing.
I understand.
So the question I would simply pose in terms of the process, interested my fellow council members thinking on this, is if we're embracing something along the lines of this, are we sending a signal to them and or the planning commission subsequently is that's kind of the council's thinking? And what if, as a result of the community engagement process, there, just as there was in Andel West, that there are issues that arise or service that the community is particularly interested in that are either different than these parameters or they're different parameters? What then? Are we saying, sorry, we've already kind of decided on these? I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the root of my issue is that I don't want us to get in a position where we are presupposing what must happen next in the official process. I just think that if we have, I mean, John, you and Michael didn't go and negotiate and talk to them on your own, even though you did physically on your own. You did it on behalf of the council. And so it would seem to me that ought to say enough about where we think there is some opportunity to work cooperatively.
Andel's an interesting example. Andel gets put up as though, you know, it reflects just and it was, and it is, exercise in terms of community and development proceeding hand in hand to come up with a better project. This is twice as big as the original project. I'm for it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to it. But the developer, this was something that everybody worked towards. So it was. I wasn't part of the discussions. I think Peter, all of you that were involved did a marvelous job. But it's bigger.
But there were also never any vote asking them to do a
No.
certain thing.
I understand that. But I'm just saying that's how I view this to take place. I mean, you know, they want to. What Andel is a reflection on a real good project that's going to make everybody in this broadest term community happy for generations to come. That's what I think we want this to be. I think that's what we want this to be. What else can we say? And whether it gets to an impasse that it all breaks down, I don't know. It didn't break down with Andel, and I think the gentleman in the back representing your neighbor, I mean, all these neighborhoods are going to have to step forward. They can build something there. So with that in mind, now you're starting to have a conversation. So everybody understands that. So.
And Brad, to your comment, I would hope that some of these parameters that we outlined in this document can be improved from our perception, maybe not from the partner's perception, but from our perception, through the community involvement process.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
I really hope, because I'm not happy with 76 units, that's very clear. We gave them a significantly different target, right? And in terms of the number of dwelling units. So I almost hope that something else or something more comes out of these discussions so that the final concept that makes it into the planned development district is even better than those 8 topics that we have outlined in this document. I really hope so. But at the same time, I also hope that's not going to be worse. So we'll see how this goes.
You know, if I was specifically telling the partners what they will do, which I'm not, just so you know, I would say schedule these meetings with the communities that are going to be most closely impacted by this development.
Tomorrow.
As soon as possible. Tomorrow. We have a meeting at 3:30, so it can't be then. So, but have that meeting. find out, get all the input from them, and then make a decision on whether you think it's worthwhile applying for the planned development district. And then once you do that, then you're gonna come in with now the parameters, and you're not gonna have this, what I would consider almost the Jeopardy method of how many units. You know, it's amazing to me that you start with the number of units and you figure out how it's gonna fit on the property. Why wouldn't you figure out what all the setbacks and heights and all that are and see what the resulting number of dwelling units might be? Well, suppose it comes out to be 110. You know, it won't, but suppose, so I just think that the first thing that, if I'm the developer and I believe what you guys have done in your discussions, I would schedule those meetings with the communities as soon as possible to get all of that input. That's how the Andel property got done the second time around in a better fashion.
Well, these guys, they do this for a living. We don't. So I rely on them. They can decide which, whether they want to start talking with our planning commission first, start meeting with the communities first, meet with both simultaneously. But yes, it needs to start.
So what we're doing right now, John, is encouraging.
We're supporting and encouraging
Right,
and encouraging. Yes,
and
that's what
it sounds like we're not voting or recommending.
Well, yes, absolutely. And then even remove my, how do you call it? Resolution, right? That's fine with me too.
Yes.
Okay, we all, I don't know, the show of hands or stand up and jump, support, encourage, and encourage. Are we all desirous to do that?
Yes.
Certainly encourage the process.
Sure.
Attaboy.
I would go with that.
Okay, wow.
Got through it.
So all the late nights reading emails, this wasn't too bad. Council member comments. Start at this end. Brad, any council member comments?
Nothing further,
Russell.
Mr. Chairman.
Nothing more, thanks.
John.
Enough.
Citizen comments, anything? Yes, sir.
Didn't ask Michael.
I did.
I'm done. Today, starting Friday until today, I'm done. So.
Yes, sir.
Todd Bonet, 3532 Shipwatch. I'm also on the board of Preserve Kiowa. There were a lot of comments about Andel West. If there is a presentation by Riverstone, I'd encourage, Riverstone to spend some time talking through about how it was a constructive process, not just a constructive outcome, but a good process. And it might be a good opportunity for the community to understand how to effectively dialogue. Thank you.
Good point. Good point. Yes, ma'am.
Carol Medendorp, totally different subject. I guess I want to talk a little bit about the 2,000 pieces of stuff that's left on the beach every night. I know you had talked about it earlier in the year, but 10 years ago, nothing could be left on the beach, and now it keeps growing and growing. The club now has 12 different things, and they have 50 things attached to it every night, and they've added more and more bins, and I know the resort also does, as well as now your beach services leave all their chairs out and stuff. It's a very different look than 10 years ago. Wondered if you had contracts with them. Is there a limit as to how much junk they can leave out? Have you thought about it with the Cape coming? The Cape is, a housing development. Well, multifamily housing development. Will they be able to leave stuff out? And then if you let that happen, then can Windswept and Duneside and all the other housing developments on the beach leave equipment out there? Just kind of wondered if you had thought about that, if there's, a limit as to how much stuff can be left on the beach.
Fair point.
Fair point.
Turtles care too. Thanks.
Very fair point.
Stephanie, you want to?
Other comments? Motion to adjourn.
Whoa.
Oh, excuse me.
Mark, you didn't raise your hand, so.
Are you on the list?
I want to interrupt someone else. My name's Mark Primar, 81 Dungannon Hall, but I'm here as a representative of Kiowa Partners. I wouldn't want the day to end without saying we're very encouraged about the discussion and the next steps. And I've taken copious notes here, but I wanted to take seriously the reference to re-engaging the area homeowners associations and cottage owners associations. We think that is an important first step. We used that technique on the first pass, the 1.0 version, and we learned certain things during that process, inclusive, if you remember, Kika sponsored a remote presentation, and it wasn't a discussion because of the nature of it, but we would encourage that too. Any venue. We, just as all of you, we learn something each time, and we look forward to re-engaging. Where we end up, we don't know yet, but the general framework that was presented represents the topics that are more appropriate, and there are a couple more that were added, and we're likely to hear others by the community. Our collective effort, and I use the term we for all of us, is that we continue to get better at what we do together in terms of creating a community, or many times recreating a community. So we view this as a positive day, and we look forward to the next step. Not that it'll be easy, because creating and recreating community is messy, but that's okay. That we look forward to that, and I say that to everyone in the audience. So we look forward.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
For those of you that don't know him, he's the top of the list of honorable men, so. Okay, motion, anybody else? Motion to adjourn?